Hi guys, thanks so much for joining me today. We are going to be talking today about two products. The first is a palette from my BoxyCharm December BoxyCharm subscription, and that is the Pure Cosmetics Buff Collection palette. And the second item that I'm just going to talk a little bit about is a concealer brush that I received in my December Ipsy Bag subscription, and that is a brush by Beau Gachis. Beau Gachis. Gachis. I should know more French than I do. I am Canadian, which means that we learn French a lot of the time. My mom used to be fluent in French. I took it all the way through high school. I live in very much a bilingual city, and still I have some problems with my accent and my pronunciation, but that's okay. Moving on. We're going to talk, as I said, a little bit about this palette. Actually, before we get to that though, let's talk a little bit about the brush, because we can do that pretty quickly. I have used this a little bit, and I'm going to be using this today to use when I'm doing some of the wet application, and I do this because I'm going to be spraying it with a setting spray. It is a concealer brush, but I don't put concealer on with a brush, but because it is meant for products being used wet or creams or concealers, which means that it is, I assume, synthetic bristles. I didn't see that information really clearly there. But then I'm going to be using this for the wet application of the shadow when I'm doing some of the shimmer shades and things like that. So I think it is a fine brush. I think the company is a bit misleading. So I went to their website, the Beau Gachis website, Gachis, and so it says Beau Gachis Paris on here, and I went to their website and it looks messy and a little tacky, and I thought, this doesn't look like a French brand. They said how they're the sponsors of some like club team, or these club girls, and it's all these girls in like black tops and what look to be like yoga pants with like their names printed on them. It doesn't invoke what I think of for Paris. And then I was looking into the founder's story. Basically all they sell is cosmetic brushes, sets of brushes, individual brushes, and I think also some eyelash curlers and tweezers, things like that. You look into their story and it says how it's two sisters. And I looked at these girls and it's like, those girls look like young, like high school young. Really? And they talk about how Beau Gachis is a translation of beautiful mess, which is what they call their daughters. And I was like, So I looked. Basically, the founding story of this is that it's a woman who decided to become a stay-at-home mom in Florida. There was nothing to do with Paris. And she decided to make these makeup brushes, and she named them after what they call their girls. That's fine. I mean, the product is good. I've been enjoying using it. It's a messy presence that they have, and it's a little bit misleading. Like, why Paris? Is there any connection to Paris whatsoever? Or do you think that a French name and saying Paris is going to make it sound fancier? Let's move on to talking about the palette. So it has been pointed out, and I'm just going to slip this out of the cardboard package that it came in that talks about the ingredients and that it is made in Taiwan but distributed through a company in the States. There is talc in these shadows, so if that's something that you are sensitive to, that is good for you to know. This is a dupe for, I believe, the Naked 3 palette. I don't own any of the Naked palettes, but I've watched some reviews of other people and they mention about being a dupe. And actually, if you go to their website, it looks like they have dupes. It looks like all their eyeshadow palettes are dupes for the Naked palettes. So this product on their website and on the BoxyCharm card is a $50 palette. Like, you originally look at this and go, oh, you're kind of a inexpensive dupe for a Naked palette. Maybe this is like $20 or $25 or something like that. But for 50 bucks, I don't know why you wouldn't just go and buy the original Naked palette. So I've been using this for a while. The packaging is not the most luxurious. It is metal on the outside, and I do find it like there's a closure on each end, so it kind of pulls open. There is a mirror in there, which is nice. And then it is the shadows. I don't know if the Naked 3 collection is like this. It is a lot of shimmers or very light shimmers and only a couple of mattes. It did come with this brush, which was all wrapped up inside when I took it out. And I don't know if I just got a bad brush. I do appreciate that it's not like, you know, a foam tip thing or something like that. This side of the brush, which is the slightly longer bristles, which I guess is supposed to be meant more for blending, is fine. It's, you know, it does its job. This side I tried using once and I thought like, do I have like cat hair on my face or something? I don't have a cat. I don't know why I would have thought that. But this is the kind of brush that whenever you pull on it, maybe oh, there we go, bristles come out. And I feel like I've gotten a bunch of, oh, see, like every time you pull on it, bristles are coming out, which is not the mark of a super high quality brush and not what I would expect to be getting in a $50 palette. You never really get great brushes in palettes. I wish they just wouldn't give you the brush in the palette. But if you're gonna give me a $50 palette, give me a better brush. And maybe, as I said, this is just a bad one. Maybe they didn't seal this very well because the other side doesn't seem to have that issue. I have been playing around with these. They are powdery. So I do find that I have been enjoying making looks with these. And because it is fairly neutral, I've been doing it when I've been going to work. I don't have a palette like this because I'm still a bit of a beginner makeup newbie. This is not, I don't have a lot of shadows like this, so it's been fun to play around with these different colors. They're not, you know, awful or anything like that. They've been working fine for me. They are, as I said, powdery, like I've been tapping off my brush and everything. And I did create this eye look today with it, and a few looks that I've quite enjoyed. The shimmery shades, and they're not really shimmer. What's the word for it when it's not like super bright shimmer, but it's not matte, it's more of a satin kind of thing? They're not super bright. They're not as impactful as I would like them to be. But they, you know, they do their job. And I'll show you in some swatches. What I'm going to do is swatch these colors, finger swatches, brush swatches, and then for the colors that are a bit more shimmery or satiny, I'm also going to do a wet brush swatch to show how you can get, hopefully, I haven't tried all of these, you're seeing it as much as I am, that you can get a bit more color out of them. So this is the palette, and there's 12 shades. We're going to swatch them 3 at a time. The top shade there is Quartz, and it's a matte. It does not show up very well on my skin, especially with the brush swatch, and I did find this when I was using it on my eye as well. The second shade down there, the middle one, is Sahara. The top one is a finger swatch, which did not show up well either. The brush swatch is underneath. It did a little bit better. And then the wet swatch is on the side going up and down. It didn't necessarily perform any better than just the dry brush swatch. It's a pretty color, but you do wish it would stand out a little bit more. The one under that is Mesa, and it's very similar to Sahara. It does show up a little bit better on my skin, but you can see there's not a huge difference between the finger swatch and the brush swatch, and then also the wet swatch, which is pretty good for the brush swatch. It means that you get as much color payoff as you do with your finger. It just would have been nice if it showed up a little bit brighter because there is a sheen to it, and it'd be nice if that had a bit more impact. The next set of shades here are some of the ones that I think perform the best. Up at the top there you have Dune, which is a matte shade. It did okay with the finger, not so much with the brush. And then, sorry, there's a third thing there where I tried to use a wet brush swatch and it just came out really messy, and I tried to rub it off but it didn't work very well. But I find Dune to be okay as a crease color. You then have Mojave, which is a bit more of a shimmer shade, and you can see that it turned out nicely with the finger swatch. Just as nicely with the brush, which is the second one down, and then the shimmer did come through a little bit more with a wet brush swatch, but this one does seem to apply quite nicely. The next one there is Sandstone, which came out a nice coppery shade. It looks a little bit browner in the pan. Once again, you can see that the finger swatch, the dry brush swatch, and the wet brush swatch are all pretty similar and all turn out fairly well. I do find that I like these shades.
The next set here starts out with the last matte in the collection, and that is Clay. And it swatches quite nicely. And you can see that it just has a little bit less impact with the dry brush swatch as it did with the finger swatch. The next one is Canyon, and it also comes out looking more coppery than you would expect on the swatches. But again, these ones perform pretty well with the dry brush and the wet brush. It doesn't really seem like there's much of a reason to use the wet brush swatch on these shades, as it doesn't give you a whole lot more impact than the dry brush. The next one down there is Desert, and it ends up looking matte on the skin, which is interesting because it's not super matte in the pan. It did well on the finger swatch, but it was super patchy with the dry brush and was a little bit better with the wet brush. It's an okay shade, but it was super patchy, and as we get darker here, these shades get crumblier and crumblier, especially when you're using them with a dry brush. For our final set of shades, we start out with the shade Dust. And you'll see from these swatches, part of my issue is that there's a lot of similarities in these. Even though they don't look at all similar in the pans, they come out looking quite similar. So Dust ends up looking a little bit darker on the skin. It again does well in a finger swatch, although the shimmer in it doesn't show up a lot. The brush swatches at this point are getting pretty patchy when you get to these darker shades. And the wet brush actually did a pretty good job on this one, and it brought out the shimmer quite a bit more. Interestingly, in the pan, Dust looks a lot more taupey, and it does not come out that way on the skin. The next one there is Barren, and again, it looks so different in the pan. It looks like a dark gray in the pan, but you can see how dark brown that looks on my skin. So once again, the dry brush swatch did not do it justice in any way, and the wet brush actually brought out a bit more of the shimmer from it. That very last one there is called Mirage, and interestingly, in the pan, it looks almost like a deep maroon color. It's got like a little bit of purple in it, but it comes out looking just brown on the skin. And this one especially, it just seems like a dark color, and it's not shimmery or foiled. It's like it has glitter in it, which makes it not necessarily my favorite. I really wish it looked a little bit more true to pan when it went onto the skin.
So clearly I need to work a little bit on doing swatches, and today I also learned if you are swatching crumbly shadows, which those very much are, don't do it on your white bedspread. I now have shadow marks all over the place from where it crumbled when I was doing it, and I tried to brush it away and it just smeared. It's not pretty. I'm going to put the link to the company's website, Pure Cosmetics, down below. Once again, it's a little bit messy. So if you go to the company, it's Pure Cosmetics, if you go to their About Us, it talks about the woman who's the founder, about how she could find nothing that worked for her cracked lips. And it wasn't until she started breastfeeding and using pure lanolin that she realized this was something that would help her lips, and she couldn't find any products that used it. So she created this skincare line, these products with pure lanolin in it. And if you go to their website, they have makeup and they have skincare. I believe they also have like brushes and tools and bath and body. But if you go to their skincare and their bath and body, it's all labeled with the brand Pure Lano. And the cosmetic stuff is all branded with Pure Cosmetics. And it looks like they might be in the middle of doing a transition between brands, and it hasn't all quite come together yet. But because it also doesn't tell me anything about why they're making makeup, because is there lanolin in the makeup? No, there is not. So while I understand what they're doing with the skincare and body care with the lanolin in it, it doesn't really tell me why they're making cosmetics. They make eyeshadows, they make eyeliners, they make mascaras, they do blush, and it's all fairly pricey for a brand that I've never really heard of before. My final thoughts on this are that it was a fun product, and it is a fun product to get in my BoxyCharm box because, as I said, being a fairly beginner newbie to makeup, I don't have a lot of these colors, so they're fun to play around with. I did find when I was looking at them and swatching that a lot of the colors are Well, there are certain colors that are similar. Like, it almost seems like they could do this in like a 9 pan palette and pretty much get the same impact. I also wish that there was a darker shade that didn't have shimmer or glitter in it, because there's really only 3 matte shades and they're all sort of on the lighter end. Do I think this is a good product? I think it is an okay product. I think it's a fun product. It is not worth $50. I cannot imagine going and buying this palette for $50, because I could go buy like the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette for like $10 more Canadian, maybe even like when you add the exchange rate in, this might be the same cost as that. There are just so many better and sort of reputable brands that don't have some of the issues that this does. And again, because it's a brand that isn't on the shelves of any of my stores that I can tell, it's not something I can really play around with before I buy, unless I get something like this in one of my subscription boxes. So yeah, I mean, it's fun. I'm glad I received it. I'm going to keep using it, but I'm not using it as much or enjoying it as much as my Studio Makeup On The Go palettes, which I do find seem to be better quality. And I couldn't see myself buying other makeup from this company unless I received something else that I could test that really performed better. From their website, it did look like they do sell their products in certain locations, but it did look like it was maybe being sold in spas and things like that, which leads me to believe that it might be more of their skincare line that is sold there. I believe this is everything I have to say about this product. Sorry, it's a little bit mixed. You know, there are some products I get and I'm never going to use them again after I try them, and that's not this. I will use this again, but in terms of providing a review, it's not worth that money. If this was 20 bucks, I'd say, yeah, it's fun. Go out and buy it. Drop 20 bucks. Big deal. You know, maybe some of the shades aren't the best, but then other ones are okay and you're getting your money's worth. But for $50, you're not getting your money's worth. So sorry for the slightly negative review. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season and a Merry Christmas. I am going to be going and celebrating with my family, and I have a ton of presents still to wrap, so I'm going to go get onto that now. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.